July 25, 2000, deep within the heavily guarded rustic sanctuary of the presidential retreat in Maryland, an extraordinary, high-stakes gamble for peace came to a grinding halt. After 15 days of intense, round-the-clock and emotionally draining negotiations, President Bill Clinton was forced to step before the global press and announce that the Camp David summit had ended without an agreement. The ambitious meeting between Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat had collapsed. For years, the world had watched the gradual progress of the Oslo Accords, hoping that a final, permanent resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was within reach. But at Camp David, those soaring hopes for a final status agreement were abruptly dashed. The failure marked a devastating, historic turning point in the Middle East peace process. Instead of delivering a historic breakthrough that would usher in a new era of coexistence, the empty tables at Camp David left behind a profound diplomatic vacuum, one that would soon be filled by a catastrophic wave of violence, permanently altering the geopolitical landscape of the region. To understand why the summit collapsed, despite the immense political pressure and goodwill involved, we must analyze the core, final status issues that defined the negotiations. For the first time in history, Israeli and Palestinian leaders sat down to confront the most sensitive, deeply entrenched problems of the conflict: the permanent borders of a future Palestinian state, the right of return for millions of Palestinian refugees, and the ultimate status of Jerusalem. Prime Minister Ehud Barak offered concessions that went further than any previous Israeli leader, including the theoretical swap of territories and a willingness to compromise on parts of East Jerusalem. However, these proposals fell short of the minimum requirements for the Palestinian delegation. For Yasser Arafat and his negotiators, the Israeli offers on borders would have created a fractured, non-contiguous Palestinian state, split into isolated cantons surrounded by Israeli-controlled security bypass roads. Furthermore, the status of Jerusalem proved entirely unbridgeable. Both sides claimed the Holy City as their undivided capital. The issue of sovereignty over the Temple Mount, known to Muslims as the Haram al-Sharif, became an emotional impasse. With neither leader possessing the domestic political capital to compromise on matters of faith, history, and national identity, the gaps proved impossible to bridge in the time provided.
The diplomatic collapse at Camp David did not simply freeze the status quo, it ignited a volatile chain reaction across the Middle East. The immediate aftermath was marked by an immediate, total loss of trust between the two parties. Rather than acknowledging that both sides had struggled with unbridgeable mandates, a narrative of blame took root. The American and Israeli leadership largely blamed Arafat for rejecting the proposals without offering a comprehensive counterproposal. In turn, the Palestinian leadership felt they were being forced into a trap, pressured to sign away fundamental international rights under an artificial, politically motivated American deadline. Back home, ordinary citizens on both sides felt a deep, crushing disappointment. The illusion that diplomacy could solve the conflict evaporated overnight. This profound disillusionment created a highly combustible atmosphere. Just 2 months after the summit ended, a controversial visit by Israeli opposition leader Ariel Sharon to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem acted as the final spark. The latent anger exploded into the Second Intifada, a multi-year wave of unprecedented violence, suicide bombings, and military incursions. The failure at the negotiating table had directly translated into tragedy on the streets, burying the peaceful legacy of the 1990s under a mountain of mutual trauma.
More than a quarter of a century later, the 2000 Camp David summit remains a vital, heavily scrutinized benchmark in the history of global diplomacy. It stands as a cautionary tale and a foundational text studied by historians, political scientists, and diplomats worldwide as a masterclass in the profound difficulties of international conflict resolution. Many analysts argue that the summit was doomed from the beginning due to a lack of preparation, noting that the core issues were thrust upon the leaders before lower-level diplomats had laid a proper foundation. Others point out that forcing a high-stakes, all-or-nothing summit creates an existential crisis for the participants, where walking away is often safer for a leader's political survival than making a historic compromise. The legacy of Camp David is an enduring impasse. The collapse of the talks proved that without a genuine, deep-seated mutual trust and a willingness to confront historical narratives, the physical mechanics of diplomacy, the luxury retreats, the maps, and the mediation of a superpower are simply not enough to forge a lasting peace. The failure at Camp David in the summer of 2000 remains a stark, powerful reminder of just how elusive and complicated the path to peace can be. It highlights the sobering reality that in long-standing historical conflicts, the wounds of the past cannot be easily erased by a single diplomatic push. As we look across the modern international landscape, where deep-rooted territorial and identity disputes continue to challenge global stability, the lessons of Camp David remain deeply relevant. How do you assess the role of third-party mediation in resolving historical conflicts? Can an outside superpower like the United States ever truly bridge the gap between two nations when their core identities are at stake? Or must peace be forged entirely from the ground up? We want to hear your analytical insights and unique perspectives, so please share your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you found this comprehensive historical breakdown valuable, please hit that like button, share this video with a fellow history enthusiast, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another episode exploring the epic moments that have engineered our modern world. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.